Well, hello, SMB Nation. This is Harry Brailsford. And as we like to do occasionally, we like a good story, an evergreen story to kind of balance out all the tech talk that we have and all the business speak that we have. And it's that time of year. We're coming into the holiday season 2018. We just came through Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and we're talking today on Cyber Monday with Lee Grunfield and Mike Reilly. We'll get to them in a minute, but the purpose of today is to talk about a book based on the Ironman. So for those of you that don't know, the Ironman is truly the greatest endurance event in the world, a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride. I love biking. And then a full 26.2-mile marathon ain't going to happen in my lifetime. The knees will never go there. But I could do two of the three. Maybe they need to have a biathlon without skis and rifles. Mike Reilly, by way of introduction, has announced over 180 Ironman races, and for the past 30 years, he's presided over the granddaddy of them all. Now, that I would like to go watch, the annual World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. He's known throughout the endurance sports world as the voice of the Ironman, and he's writing a book coming out in early 2019 called Mike Reilly, Finding My Voice, with help from best-selling author and man on the screen with us, Lee Grunfield, who is also here with us, and I've known for quite some time in the technology world. So, Mike, let's jump right into it. Tell us why you wanted to write this book.
Oh, my goodness, Harry, a number of reasons, but I think the overriding reason is all these years I've been so inspired and motivated by the stories people have told me, by the stories I've seen with my own eyes and I've witnessed. I felt it would be an injustice not to pass those stories on to others, to be as motivated and as inspired to be able to push through any tough day you have, any tough business deal you have, anything at all. They seem to override everything out there.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to my next question about, having kind of peeked at some of the pros that I know you're in final completion with, but it's a real insider's look into the world of a lot of us would find somewhat mysterious. Now, let me frame that up, that at SMB Nation, we'd like to have conversations that go beyond our bubble, right? And we like to have motivational conversations. It's not all SQL Server and Azure Cloud all the time. So here's my question. Are people who are not familiar with the Ironman going to find this interesting, the SMB Nation membership?
I think they'll find it very interesting. The people that do Ironman are from all walks of life, from 18 years old to 85 years old. They all have goals and desires like everybody does. They're raising families. They're trying to make sure their profession is flourishing. They're trying to be a great human. And in order to do that, a lot of them feel they want to go above and beyond. Let's see what their limits are. That grandmother, 65-year-old grandmother of 4 that battled breast cancer, that all of a sudden gets to an Ironman finish line, and her grandkids know that anything is possible. So I think it's for everybody.
Yep. And Lee, let me ask you a question. First, before you answer my question, if you could quickly introduce yourself. And I believe you and I teamed up, boy, got to turn the clock back, but I think it was a security startup at one point, and then some IoTisms and some just, you're a writer, I'm a writer. So by way of introduction, please introduce yourself. And then I want to ask you this question. Why did you decide to become involved in this book?
The first question is an interesting one, Harry. I've been in the technology business for quite a while, and it seems like there's nowhere I can turn in technology without bumping into you. So we did the startup, and you offered to be helpful. I did some work for a company that was supplying software to the gaming industry in Vegas. I was an exec with support.com, and there you were again. So, your reach in the business is so extensive that it's kind of like, anybody who wants to be anybody or do anything serious, you call Harry, see what he's up to. And I've been in technology, I watched the interactive business grow up, and I've, of course, been a writer as well.
Yep. So why did you become involved in this book?
I've known Mike for a number of years. My wife is an Ironman triathlete and has been
Oh,
for,
wow.
I guess, I don't know, 26 years or something like that. And when Mike is kind of the Harry Brailsford of Ironman. You can't be in this business without running into Mike, because he is, nobody is as present in the sport
Yep.
for the athletes and for the spectators as Mike is. He'll talk a little later, but an Ironman announcer does a hell of a lot more than just sit there and call names across the line. He presides over the whole event and the week leading up to the event, and people gravitate towards him because he not only listens to stories, but he tells stories when it's appropriate right out over the mic. And it's a 17-hour day, and
Wow.
when athletes are, yeah, well, for Mike, it's 19 hours because he starts 2 hours before the race starts. But
Yep.
And he tells stories about athletes as they come across the line. So there's nobody who's in a better position to tell the stories. And it was just a terrific opportunity for me to hear those stories firsthand and help them shape how they're going to be told.
Appreciate that, and appreciate the compliments back at you. Mike, so let me put a wrapper on what Lee just said. So I thought the race announcer just stands there and calls out the names, which is valid. My son used to do bike racing, and we went to U.S. Nationals, and there's a certain cadence and there's a certain voice for that microphone. So I'll give you that. But it sounds like you're getting inside people's heads and finding out their stories. So let's talk about that. Off the microphone, how are you interacting with the people? How are you getting these stories? How are you helping them?
Well, I ask them. People love telling their stories, when they go through some real trials and tribulations throughout their life, and then all of a sudden they feel they're going to accomplish something that they've never accomplished before. They want to tell you about it, and I want to hear it. And it's a one-on-one conversation or a one-on-one communication. But then on race day or race week, even at the welcome ceremony or wherever it may be, I get to tell that story to hundreds of thousands of people. And the reason I like being able to do that is, one, because this person has overcome some great odds to get where they're at. And there could be others in the audience that are going through a tough time, and they said, my time's not tough at all. Listen to that story. So that's why I love doing it. That's why I love doing it. Everybody's got a great backstory, Harry.
Yeah,
we all do.
Yeah. I've used that line. In fact, with Thanksgiving dinner and families congregating, I was just saying everybody's got a family, and the corollary would be everybody's got a story.
True.
Mike, so give us a serious story, then give us some funny stories. So give me a serious story that is reflective of the pre-planning you do and the research. Everybody loves a serious story turned good.
Well, this story is kind of related because my son is about the same age as this young man is, and he was coming home from a swim meet, great athlete in high school, and got crushed by a garbage truck and was just mashed up, wasn't supposed to live. They thought he was dead. They felt him breathing. So long story short, he works through his rehab. His family is so supportive. And then all of a sudden, when he's in his wheelchair, he sees an Ironman and he wants to do an Ironman event. I mean, to go from almost not living to 2 or 3 years of rehabilitation to wanting to do the world's greatest endurance event. So when Brian came across that finish line when he did, and me knowing that backstory, I mean, I gave him all the accolades I could give him. Obviously, I make the call that is famous of "You are an Ironman," and it almost brought a tear to my face because I'm thinking, gosh, what if that was my son or my friend's son or somebody I knew, and they went through that? Could we get through that as a family? Could we do it? Could he come back from almost death and become an Ironman? And it just hits home. I mean, stories like that hit home.
Well, and let me just clarify in case I missed something. He completed the Ironman as an able-bodied person.
Yes, he did.
So he was not in a tricycle wheelchair or something like that, but he became able-bodied again. Man,
he did. He was crushed. His heart was moved to the other side of his body, and he went through. Lee'd have the information 4 5 liters of blood, no, 8 liters of blood. I mean,
Oh man.
to even be able to live.
Yeah.
And he probably should be in a wheelchair, but he's not. I mean, he's not. He's an able-bodied athlete, strong kid, a stud, and he's an Ironman after all that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then let's lighten it up just a little bit with maybe some funny stories. I mean, I'm assuming, and you're probably going to tell me this isn't allowed. Is there the person with the frisbee dog? Maybe dogs aren't allowed, but give me some sugar. Give me one or two funny stories.
There are quite a few funny stories. You know, I had a young fellow get out of the water at Ironman Lake Placid, and they wear their wetsuits, and underneath their wetsuits, you know, they have their gear on to be able to jump on their bike and just go. It's called the transition. So this young Japanese fellow gets out of the water and he lays down, and there's wetsuit strippers, peelers that help them get out of the wetsuit. Well, he didn't have his bathing suit on or his biking shorts on underneath. I've got thousands of people there. I'm looking at him. You know, I never cuss or swear, but I wanted to say the OSHIT word. So I go, oh my, you know, my goodness. But I couldn't let it go. I go, oh, look at it. You know, I kind of pointed him out, and he looks at the crowd and covers himself up with one hand, puts his wetsuit over the shoulder with the other, and runs on his way. And the kicker of the day, the kicker of the morning was the water was very cold. So the crowd saw that. So I tell that story. But he was fine. He had a smile on his face. He got to his bike, and he finished the race that day as an Ironman. But from then on, I tell the story at almost every race, and I've never had an athlete not have something on underneath. So he led the way to make sure. Get completely dressed in the morning before you go out to that swim.
Hey, Harry, I'll tell you a story that
Okay.
Mike has difficulty with, because he mentioned this call of "you are an Ironman," and you got to understand, in this sport, that is like right up there with "let's get ready to rumble." People,
Yeah, Michael Buffer, I was gonna say, yeah.
Exactly. They live when they're training. They live to hear those words, and so they're tremendous. So, Mike, I'm going to just tell Harry about that time that Mike was on a break. And a guy came through, and one of Mike's assistants said, "You are an Ironman." And this guy was so disappointed after a year of training. So he runs into Mike at an airport, and he's got his family there. He said, "Mike, you didn't say that, call me, you are an Ironman." So Mike says, "All right, drop those bags," tells his wife to get the video phone out. And in the middle of the airport, he yells at the top of his lungs, "You are an Ironman." The whole terminal is trying to figure out what's going on. And that's happened to him a lot.
And the wife's standing there a bit embarrassed, as they always are, but he's jumping around like he just finished the race. It was great.
You know, I'm curious if you don't mind, but do you have the service mark or trademark or copyright? Do you have the right to use that phrase? I'm just curious how that industry works.
No, the word Ironman is a company, a trademark. Ironman is a brand on its own, so I can't trademark a brand. It's like saying you are a Ford. I don't own, I can't do that. But it is, I was the first to ever say it back in 1991. There are other commentators throughout the world that I want them to tell the athlete they're an Ironman. That's what they want to hear. But since I was the first and the longest, I make phone calls I'll have somebody call me up, Harry, or send me a message and say, "You didn't call me an Ironman at Ironman so-and-so." And I go, "Well, I wasn't there. I can't do them all." and they go, "Oh, can you send me, give me your phone number?" And I'll call people up personally. They answer the phone, and usually hear some of the screaming on the other end. But then I say, "All right, turn your recorder on. Here we go." And Jimmy Brown, you are an Ironman, with all the enthusiasm I can give him.
And that's actually a valid point. When my son did the half in Lake Stevens, Washington, just north of Seattle, he was doing the triathlon team at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and just transferred that skill set home for the summer. But I believe that very same day there were multiple Ironman contests. I was going to say Ironmen, but Ironman contest. And is that a truism that on any given summer Saturday there are multiple events in this genre?
Yes, there are. Ironman. There are just over 35 full distance Ironman races, the ones I call, and then the half Ironmans, the 70.3. There's almost 200 of those all throughout the world. So we could have 3 or 4 events on the very same weekend.
It's amazing. Well, Mike, let's talk about yourself personally. So, how has this career, how has this journey impacted you personally? So, did it lower your cholesterol level and your blood pressure? Have you done an Ironman? Let's get personal. What's it done for you?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Yeah, it's always been a part of me. I've been a part of endurance sports. I was a marathon runner, back in the day, and
Okay.
and then a triathlete. And I was always enamored by them. Growing up in, being in San Diego was like the hotbed, the hub of the sport. So I knew all the professional athletes and the top age groupers, and I competed with them alongside them. And then one day, a woman at a 10K race handed me a microphone because I couldn't run because I was injured, and I started calling people's names, and I started seeing the look on their faces, and like, wow, your name's your most prized possession. Besides your wife and your kid, I mean, it's who you are, it's what you are, it's your background, it's everything. And so I'm calling people's names when they come across the finish line and telling them, you look fantastic and great job and congratulations, all the accolades you can throw their way. And it made me as happy as them. To make someone else happy is probably one of the greatest things you can do. And I get to do it now at an Ironman race 25, 26, 2,700 times over 17 or 19 hours. And so Harry, it's what it's done for me. It's who I am. It's my fabric. It's nobody's ever going to say, Mike Reilly, he helped start a startup in '99, and he also helped this guy, and he sold one of the best salesmen in the country, and I sold a lot of things. They won't know me as that.
Yep.
And I love those careers and what I did, and to produce income, and being able to produce income at telling someone how fantastic they are, and knowing that call may change their lives. Because I've had people tell me over and over again, it changed my life for the better, for the rest of my life. So that's who I am.
Appreciate that. Lee, what was it like for you helping Mike with this book? You and I are the joke I like to tell, and I don't mean to imply you're the same, but when I say I'm an analyst blogger and they go, what's that mean? And it means, well, I'm a slow typist. If I have my analyst hat on. So you and I share typing in common, but seriously, what was it like for you to be involved in the book?
It was, well, and it still is. It's been a fascinating experience. I've known Mike for a long time. He's called my wife across the line, I don't know, 24 times or something like that. And I knew that he had a lot of stories, and I knew some of those stories from a different perspective. Hearing them from Mike put a whole new slant on him and a whole new insider's perspective, which was fascinating for me. But the other thing is that I really got mobilized by Mike's passion. I know he's a showman, and I know he knows how to rile up a crowd, no pun intended, which is why he's so sought after. But I didn't really realize the depth of his appreciation for the sport and for the practitioners of the sport, and the depth of his passion was very motivating. And it made me really, really want to make sure that his story got told right. So it's been one of about the most fun I've ever had writing a book, and we've just had a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, back to you as we start to wrap up. So what do you think the general reader can learn from this book? And I know we've kind of talked about it, but let's put a wrapper on this thing.
Well, there's a lot of things, a lot of lessons to be learned from this book, and they're not lessons that I'm trying to teach. It's just lessons I'm trying to tell because I've seen them, I've felt them, I've had passion for them. So what the reader, I think, will walk away from this book is reading stories of someone coming through some incredible odds against themselves. Mm-hmm. And every day people push us back. They push us down. The world, it's just it can be a negative place. It pushes you down. If you listen to a certain type of newscast all the time, you just all of a sudden, gosh, I'm in a funk. And why? Why am I in a funk?
Yeah.
They pick up a book like this and they read about, a mother and father after losing their child coming out of the depths of the unimaginable. Nobody, no parent should ever outlive their child, and to come
Right.
out of that and come to the other side, and are they 100% healed? And no, but they're living life as full as they can live life. And when somebody reads a story about that, it's going to move them. I don't care who they are. And I'll talk to CEOs of major corporations, and when I get on the phone with them, hey, Jill, it's Mike Reilly. Oh my God, Mike, how you do? They become these little animated kids. The boy and girl comes out in them, and it's who they are. It's their pure self, and those type of people are moving the world. And I tell
Yeah.
at the end of every Ironman, Harry, at the award ceremony, I said, if you 2,500 people could go out and run the world right now, we'd be a much better place. And this
Yeah.
book hopefully will help them get there.
Harry, can I, speaking of
Yeah.
rapid, can I throw one thing in the mix?
Yeah.
Mike has a website, very simply, mikereilly.net. And if people
Yep.
go there, they can get more information about the book. And also they can, if they sign up for an advance notification, we will let them know when the book is ready, a week or two before the general public does. And we'll be posting excerpts from the book and some photos and some really fun stuff, and Mike doing videos. So if they go to mikereilly.net, they can get that information.
Yep. I have it up
Plug,
on the screen.
shameless
And
plug.
Yep, I have it for viewers to see, and exactly, folks. Go sign up for the notification. You'll be first to know when the book comes out. Mike, final question. We're at time. So, will you be doing keynote speeches? And let me preface that. People such as yourself, I will often see at technology conferences, right? Because man cannot live by bits and bytes alone at these 3-day events. So they
Good
bring
point.
in the Olympic athlete, they bring in the motivational speaker, and I mean that sincerely. I think you're certainly in that class. Might we see you at a tech event or some other conference talking on the big stage?
I'd be honored to do something like that. My world, when I'm at an Ironman event or any endurance event, I'm talking to people of the like, and it's not saying they get it more than anybody else, but when I go outside of that and I talk to a sales conference or a tech conference, it's amazing to see what I call the wake up in the audience. Like,
Yep.
holy crap, what am I complaining about? I can't make my quota. Why can't I make my quota? I should be able to go out there and do that. I wrote something down that I thought about it in sales and in business. It's amazing how Ironman athletes have come up to me and says, I am so much better of a salesperson. I'm so much better of leading my company because I went on this Ironman journey. Not saying just because they finished, but they went on this journey. And
Yep.
I think everybody needs a journey greater than themselves in life, and all of a sudden they become a greater person. So yes, I would love to go out and tell people these stories and let them know that there's people out there that are not better or stronger or smarter than you, but they figured it out maybe a little better than the rest of us. So why not follow their lead?
Well, let me ask an overtime question. I'm going to take this to overtime, and then we truly need to let you get back to doing book production and so on. But I do some long distance multi-day bike rides, so that's my thing. And the Seattle to Portland and the Seattle to Vancouver, BC rides. That's how I roll. It literally roll. And I got to tell you, gentlemen, back when Knights were bold and Kings owned the gold, and I was younger, I used to kind of race it, or I just in my mind's eye. Those days are long gone, but I was kind of pushing it for time and going as far as I could on day one. So day two, I get the upper hand. And then a couple of years ago, I said, first of all, it's not a race. It's not set up with police escorts and safety. So it's not a race. And I said, darn it, I'm going to tour it. For example, midpoint day one to Portland, Centralia is the beer garden. A lot of people go on to mile 125 and 140. They go on. And I'm like, I want to listen to the band. So, Mike, the question is, do you see people in the Ironman community that have maybe evolved? And yes, you have a time limit, but I mean, is everybody racing this thing, or some people, as we like to say, enjoying the ride?
Oh, I think from the very first professional to the last place finisher at an Ironman, they enjoy the ride. Sure, there's some that are racing for a time or to beat their time before, the year before or years before to beat their time. But at the end of the day, it's not about the race. It's about being in the race. And I think that's what you realize when you do an endurance event. You go, okay, this is going to be a tough day. There's going to be some spots where I'm going to want to quit. And even if you're going slower than you want to go, there's spots where you want to quit. You're having a bad day, but you push through them. So yeah, some really race, and they make their living at racing, the professionals, and some age groupers are pretty anal about it. But overall, I think they know, since they're in the race and they're in the journey, it's fine no matter what time they have. And you know what? I call the biggest winners are the ones that toe the start line. They make the commitment, they get to the start line, and they take off. That's a win. That's a win.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're going to make that the final word. So, folks, on screen, you can see information on his forthcoming book concerning announcing at the Ironman and lessons in life. Lee Gruenfeld, I appreciate you connecting me with Mike so we could have a little bit of fun here and head into the holidays thinking positively.
There you go.
Yeah, why not?
Gentlemen, have a nice day. Good luck with your book. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.